Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome to another edition of Cal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Cal Korff. I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Folks, as I say at the beginning of every show, again because it's true, we try to cover everything from politics to the paranormal on Cal's Corner here. Once again, we don't get to all of the subjects in one show, but maybe over a period of God knows how many years, we will have covered God knows how many subjects. All right, let's start off with politics because a lot of people are talking about politics, at least in the United States. And let's talk about President Trump and, of course, former FBI Director and Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. Now, I didn't see all the hours of the Mueller testimony. I didn't have to. I did see enough of it, though, to come away with two fairly firm conclusions, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. Based on my limited discussions with fellow Americans, it seems like most of them agree with the following view. The whole thing was a debacle. Should never have happened. What a joke. The Democrats keep doing everything in their power. They have special skills. They've proven it in their track record. Just ask Hillary Clinton, of doing everything they can do to give Trump another 4 years in office. If they keep doing this, they might as well just not bother running. It's really ridiculous. First of all, Mueller said very clearly before he opened his mouth to testify, and let's be honest, he was very frail, didn't seem to be all there. Don't know if that's a new permanent condition with him. He is not a spring chicken anymore. All of us will die of age someday. Hopefully we live long, but a lot of people don't. Anyway, regardless of what his health is, he said very clearly, I'm not going to say anything that's beyond the report. So my question is, why would they even bother having a hearing? Why would he even agree to do this? Because all they had to do was hire a stand-in, someone who could at least not keep saying, can you repeat the question, and just read the damn report, and then they'd learn the same thing they learned without embarrassing themselves, which was absolutely nothing new. So, again, I don't even know where to begin how stupid this whole thing was. I'm going to bring anybody listening to this show back to the principal point here, which I think is the only thing that matters. Why have a hearing bringing the star head honcho of that report in before the cameras and the American people, on taxpayer money, of course, and go ahead and ask him to talk about a report where he said, all I'm going to talk about is what's in my report. They've had this report for months. They could read it themselves. For all I know, there may be even an audiobook version somebody's done. I don't know. The point is, it was just a joke. And then now you have Nadler saying impeachment is in effect, and he's demanding the grand jury secrets. Again, the American people, if you ask them, and there are countless polls out there that prove this, the newest one says very clearly that the overwhelming, most important issue in the minds of the American people, most Americans, these are ones who are going to vote, Democrats, should you be listening to this and use your brains, they care about illegal immigration. They care about the economy. More important than the economy, they care about universal health care. How about affordable health care? Who cares if it's universal? How about any decent, affordable health care? We're getting to the point where we don't care where it comes from, as long as it's decent and affordable. Who it comes from is a detail at that point. That's what Americans care about, and that's how they're going to vote based on their wallet. Now, I'm the first to admit that I don't think this so-called economic miracle is going to last because it was never a miracle. I remind everybody that there's really no evidence that miracles exist, period. There is, however, cause and effect. So I don't think it's a miracle when someone suddenly survives something. I think it's great, but there's usually a very normal, logical, you can figure it out explanation as to why some of those things that are called miracles happen. And we must remember that historically the human race has used miracles and religion to explain things or try to explain things it just didn't know or didn't care to try to understand. It still does that, just as the UFO field or the paranormal. God, it's a religion to some of these people. It's ridiculous. Even though they don't like religion, they say that. But even they exhibit all the signs and symptoms of someone who is a religious extremist. It happens to be reticulans instead of Jesus Christ. Same shtick, different subject. All right, so here's Nadler, the Democrat, saying we're going to impeach, even though most Americans, and Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the Democrats, has said we don't want to impeach the guy. But Nancy can't keep her troops in line because trying to get Democrats to agree on something other than the fact they hate Trump is like trying to herd a bunch of cats. It just doesn't work very gracefully. And that's why I call them the Keystone Cops of the two political parties, because they are that. They are as stupid and as weak as they've basically been since the time of the Civil War. That's the time when they were against freeing the slaves and, of course, went on to help found and start the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, they don't want to talk about that today because they have flipped history into perverting it and making you falsely believe that the Republicans were pro-slave and, of course, started the KKK. And only Republicans are racist. No one else is. Again, this extremism, this polarization, it has gotten out of control to the point where record numbers of people are just tuning out. They just don't want anything to do with Facebook or anything like that. And I find that rather interesting because the other day I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine, love the guy to death, and he was telling me that he wasn't sure the internet was a good thing. And I told him I disagree with that. I disagree with it because I think the internet is a wonderful thing. Now, I admit I have a bit of a passion for hypermedia. I was, after all, on Apple's and Claris's HyperCard development team. The HyperCard team invented the hyperlink. Apple holds the patent for it. They could charge you folks every time you click on something and it takes you to something else, but they don't. They're not, say Microsoft or company oriented that way. But I love hypermedia. Always have. I think it's neat that you can be looking at something, reading it, for example, and then let's say you see a word in a sentence that you don't quite understand it or you're rather curious about that. You can click on it and then drill down as far as you want to go. Life is one big relational database. I really believe that. How you succeed in life, in my limited view, and based on my short experience, is that you try to exploit in a positive way, doing the right things, hopefully, of the fact that everything is ultimately related to everything else. I have especially learned this in my travels, having been to and or lived in 27 different countries around the world, very different cultures, on 4 different continents. And I can tell you that I've run into mutual acquaintances in some of the most remote places on this planet where the odds of this happening were almost impossible, but they did. I remember this was the last trip I was in Europe secretly in December. I went there. I was with my mother. I was trying to take her to a place that I used to go hang out and do a lot of my skullduggery stuff, for lack of a better term, investigations, undercover work, would type up my reports on my laptop and so on. And I would hang out in various Czech pubs and things like that, places where I would socialize, and also places I could go where they kind of knew what I did or didn't know, but nobody would ask a lot of questions. I could do what I wanted, and nobody would bug me. So I'd hang out at some of these places. So I was taking my mom around to show her some of these. And it turns out that in one of these places, it was under new ownership. The owner had died. He was killed in a car crash. Very sad to hear it. He's a friend of mine. I didn't know he had passed away. And we're not able to get in there. And so what happened is we turned around to walk away. And as soon as we turned the corner, I run into an old friend that I had not seen in 7 years, at that moment, at that slice in time, with my mother as a witness. What are the odds of that happening? If I had just gone in any other time at that split second and had not had the exact things happen the way they did, this includes just missing the metro car, having to wait 3 more minutes before another car came, walking up those extra steps, taking this flight of stairs instead of that one, I would have never seen my friend. We'd have never gone into the pub together because she knew the new owner. We talked, caught up on old times, said goodbye because this person was also leaving the place where she had lived for many, many years. And again, I have to thank the universe or God or whatever, I say Yahweh because I'm Jewish, for this type of thing happening. Because the odds of it happening, if I tried to do it again, placing a bet in Las Vegas, it wouldn't happen. So I have no explanation as to why these things happen. Are they proof that they're miracles, that God did it? Well, based on our rules of science, we can't say that. Why it may be true, we can't prove it. And that's the thing to remember. There's nothing wrong with admitting the fact that you don't know. You may never know. Or, I don't know. How many times have you been around with somebody where they don't know, but you're like, come on, and they feel some sort of pressure, or they think they do, and then they pull something out of their you-know-what, make it up, give it to you, and then expect you to believe it. I know people who do that, and it's frustrating, and I try not to deal with them as much as possible because I might as well be asking a wall. At least the wall's not going to lie to me. It may not say anything, but saying nothing is not automatically a lie either. So again, there is only, in my view, cause and effect. And this is why I have a problem with people who talk about the paranormal as if there's some reality out there beyond the reality we live in. No, I think the universe is pretty much one thing. There's a lot of stuff in there, infinite amounts, okay? And we'll never understand or see or know it all. We're not capable of that, even if we wanted to. And that's okay, because other than God, I assume, and even then it's an assumption, only God would be able to know it all and do it all and be it all, and that's the whole point and concept of God. No other gods are needed, right? Depends on your definition, I guess. Anyway, we'll come back to politics after this commercial break here, and what I want to talk about real quickly after the break is where the election so far seems to be heading. I understand that we've got a long way to go, but no sign that it's heading in the right direction. We'll be back after this break.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome back to another edition here of Cal's Corner Radio. This is segment 2. My name is Cal Korff. I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Excuse me as I clear my throat, folks. We were talking about politics, the recent debacle of having Mueller testify again. Nothing new was learned. There was no point in him even being there. He had his aides there because they kind of had to carry the load. He seemed out of it, a bit confused. Again, I have no idea what his personal health is. I don't think it's relevant to the fact that all he did was show up and basically didn't say anything new. And if that is the Democrats, especially since they're driving this, not the Republicans, for obvious reasons, they hate Trump, they're in opposition, doesn't make it right. I'm talking about being in opposition to the point where you just do things that make no sense, regardless of what you think of the leader of the other party. That would be Trump in this case. The whole thing, again, was just a waste. And again, if this is how the Democrats view doing things right or how they're going to manage things should they regain the White House, the United States is in serious trouble. Now, if you look at the race today, if the election were held today, if you believe the polls, and the last election told us we shouldn't trust them, Joe Biden would be in the White House. He would win. And maybe he would beat Trump. Trump has upset enough people where he's lost some of his base. But Democrats have kind of a similar situation in that no matter how hard they try, and let's be honest, they seem to be a bit desperate, they keep losing more of their base as well. It's reaching the point where Americans are just saying, I don't like either party, but at least Trump is not quite one of them, and I'll just hold my nose and vote for him because I sure don't want a career politician. Now, Elizabeth Warren, who is doing surprisingly well on the side of the Democrats, she is proving to be much of a stronger contender than Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris would prefer. She is pointing out that the economy is going to have problems in the near future. I think that that's kind of obvious because if you look at the Trump tax cut, it helped him and his rich buddies, and of course all of those in power who had been in power for a while. Didn't help the average American because when tax cuts are made by the Republicans, they tend not to do that. And of course the Democrats, when they make tax cuts, they tend to raise your taxes as well, cut them in different areas, but at the end of the day, you end up owing more taxes, at least most Americans do, and that's what both of these parties do. Tax, 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 or move the piles of monies around so that now you have a situation where only 10% of the wealth and in America's and wealthy families own over half the stocks on the stock market. Again, that is not sustainable, but Republicans don't care, Democrats don't care, because they don't live in the same world that you and I do. They don't have to follow many of the same laws. They have passed themselves and have given themselves exemptions. They don't have Obamacare, for example. Do you think they'd wish that on themselves? No, they'd wish it on you because you empowered them to get away with it, because you voted for them, and now they're going to screw you because you voted them into power, and it's your fault. And this is where this election is bringing this issue to a head. Because in the last election, as I saw and covered as a journalist for Daily World and Daily Post newspapers, we saw that record numbers of Americans were disillusioned with both parties. They want a viable third-party alternative, or maybe no party, but just a viable new something that's going to hopefully not do the same stupid things that the Democrats and Republicans make a point to bend over backwards to do. Most Americans don't support that. So what's going to happen now? The idea that you're always going to vote my party right or wrong is stupid. You shouldn't vote on the party. The party is nothing without people. It can't do anything without people. The party really doesn't exist. People exist that say we're going to be this thing called a party. But again, without people, the party can't do anything. So when I hear lame excuses, well, the Democratic Party did this. No, they didn't. People did it, and you can name them. So start doing it. Quit playing games. Quit avoiding the subject. The dog didn't eat your homework, okay? You just didn't do your homework. So what's happening now? Well, it seems that the only major piece of legislation that's moving forward, which Trump says he'll sign, big deal, is the National Anti-Spam Robocaller, essentially Containment Act, where they're going to increase the penalties for abusive robocallers, and they're going to put some high-tech stuff in there, which will, of course, cost more taxpayer money. That's the idea. Got to feed the donor base, of course, to go ahead and, beef up the system so you get fewer robocalls. If I had to choose between decent health care and having to touch the option of block this caller on my iPhone when I get a robocall or a call that is just a scam, I'd rather have decent health care and be bothered by the 2 or 3 seconds it takes to press the little button on my iPhone screen that says block this caller. I have quite a long list of blocked calls, and I'd rather do that all day than have no decent health care. So once again, the Democrats and Republicans, they're scoring field goals when they need to score touchdowns if they're going to win. Look at the budget that's being passed now. You'd never know there were any Republicans in office, let alone he's president, although he's not really a real Republican. Record deficits again from both parties. It used to be just one. Now it's both. You would never know that a Republican in name is sitting in the White House right now. You'd swear he is spending like a drunk sailor, like a Democrat. So what is the difference when there's no difference except the name of the party? At the end of the day, the critical issues are not dealt with and the people get screwed over. What do you call that? You call that the current state of the United States of America. And it is ridiculous and sad, and it's not going to work. And it's not just America, by the way. It's also in mighty, organized, socialist, leaning heavy, liberal Europe. Look at Great Britain, the strongest power in Europe. Germany is the strongest continental power because England is not part of the continent. There's some water separating them. They're an island. But Britain is a more powerful country than Germany. Germany's number 2 in Europe. France is number 3. And look what's happening in Great Britain. Like I reported and predicted and said from day one years ago, not only would Brexit pass, because like my prediction for Trump winning the election, I was talking to people and I understood from friends in Europe and my fellow Americans, I understood their moods and frustrations. I agreed with them, but I wouldn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Hillary either. I refused to play in this game because it was wrong and corrupt. And then for Brexit, you just have to listen to the average European. The ordinary European guy from any of the EU countries, he'll give you an earful about how things are not going the right way. And that person is right. And that's why Brexit passed, much to the shock and surprise of the elites who live in their ivory tower and don't live in the real world and are busy over-regulating people's lives so that the people rise up and say, F you, you know what? That is what has been going on. And that is why Brexit is still trying to be passed. But it's even more Machiavellian than that. Let me give you some details here because I've reported on this in full-page specials for the newspapers. You see, one of the key politicians behind pushing Brexit through was Boris Johnson. But see, he didn't really want to do the dirty work in that. So what he did is he did just enough to get Brexit passed. And then he said, I'm out of here. You guys can sort it out. And he knew darn well that the other side, who always said, this isn't serious, it'll never work, folks, don't even spend serious money trying to educate people on why leaving the EU may not be the smartest thing to do, at least this way. It passed. It surprised everybody. The establishment was shocked, just like when Hillary Clinton lost to the Donald. And then Boris Johnson says, you guys sort it out, wink, wink. And he knows damn well that nothing's going to happen for as long as 2 years. And that's exactly what happened. Theresa May took over. David Cameron got out as quick as he could and quit, ran like a coward to get out of having to deal with the consequences of Brexit passing. Because he said, if it passes, I'm out of here. Boy, did he keep his word for once. Screwed the country over. Theresa May gets thrown to the wolves. There's no way she's going to turn that ship around. It's going to sink. And then her own party abandons her. So many people quit and leave that essentially, once she steps down, Parliament is effectively dissolved. And then, of course, that leaves the other party standing because they're the only ones who have a majority at that point because the other side has lost enough members where they've quit. So now they've won because they've worn the other side down by attrition, by doing nothing, by just letting them fall on their own stupidity. And they gleefully bent over backwards to do that. So now Johnson is the new Prime Minister of the UK with the Queen's backhanded blessing. And he's their version of Donald Trump. Only he's not going to succeed in a lot of stuff either because he's not exactly good news for the country. But he is a symptom of the problem. You have reactionary policies, reactionary results, reactionary politicians who end up via knee-jerk decisions in power, and then the rest of the nation suffers. Now, let me give you one reality check on Brexit. Let's say that Johnson gets everything he wants, and the terms of Brexit are such that he's happy with it, and so is everyone who wanted to leave the EU. One question, EU haters. What about Ireland and Scotland? What are you going to do about them? Let's see. Last time I checked, Scotland, according to the British, is part of the United Kingdom. They have to kiss Queen Elizabeth's you-know-what. They don't want to, but they have to, because they'll militarily be conquered like they were in the past by the British. We'll come back to that after the commercial break.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Cal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we're talking about Scotland, the UK, Brexit, EU. To wind this up on this segment here, the problem is that, let's say that the Brexiters who don't want to be part of the EU got everything they wanted, okay? It still isn't going to work, and here's why. The United Kingdom is not one country, at least not in the minds of the British. Again, you've got Scotland. It is and it isn't its own country and its own boss. It has a parliament, but it's subservient to England. So there's not a clean break there. Then you've got countries like Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland. What happens when they're all part of the EU and Britain, the British part only, is not? What are you going to do as far as crossing the borders? How do you handle security? Well, if you do visa waivers and things like that, well, you had that when you were part of the EU. What about trade tariffs? The British government actually thought it could go to all these different countries who are members of the EU and say, hey, Spain, we're not going to be part of the EU, but hey, let's still have the same trade benefits. No, Spain said no. In fact, the whole EU, on behalf of all their members, basically told Britain where to stick it. It's like, if you want to be part of the EU and get its benefits, then you have to be a member. If you don't, not only will you pay to leave, but you will pay going forward like you're just another country we've got to deal with. Not quite that simple, a little more complicated than that, but the whole thing is a mess. So the whole thing was not thought out thoroughly down to the details. It was actually meant to send a message to the bozos in London who run the country into the ground, and just like our two parties in America are doing the same thing now. We've got, about 23 trillion in debt, roughly. It was only about 19 or 20 trillion when Trump took office, and of course he slammed Obama for running up those debts, ignoring the reason why Obama did it. It wasn't Obama's fault. But now you've got both parties just spending like they're drunk, and they don't seem to care. And, of course, it can't go on forever. Nothing does. But there's going to be a big course correction coming. It is inevitable, and it's long overdue. And then the real fun is going to begin. Because what happens when you've got economic realities that do catch up with just enough people to where they're everybody's problem? I think we're actually heading that way now. Let's look at the Sanders campaign as an example. He's getting a lot of positive publicity over the fact that he's paying his campaign workers $15 an hour. Maybe even more, 17, 18, 19 bucks an hour, depends on what they're doing. You say, wow, that's sweetness and light. They get health care and other benefits. That's great too. He's walking his talk. God bless him. No other campaign is doing that. That's something to think about. But what happens if Sanders doesn't do well and he starts to run out of money? What if he needs 500 volunteers instead of the 300 he can afford? Could the fact that he's paying these higher prices mean that at the end of the day, like the last time he ran for president, he's going to come up a bit short, while someone else like Biden or Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren pays less or anything at all to some of their campaign workers, most of which are volunteers anyway. And then because they saved that extra cash, even though they raised less money, they were able to finally win the brass ring and win it and beat Trump, or at least run against him. That would be victory for a Democrat, at least on their side, since they, of course, are not the incumbent. I don't know how that's all going to pan out. But what I do know is when I talk to my friends all over the United States, I hear one common theme, and that is that wages have not kept up with the cost of living. That's been true for a long time now. And they essentially point out that that's been true for decades. I know that when I talk to my friends in America about what they make now per hour, per year, versus what I made working for companies like Apple and Boeing and KMI and Lawrence Livermore Lab. Sorry to burst your bubble, Bob Lazar, conspiracy nutters. The money I was making back then was very close to what a lot of people are making today. And I find that shocking because there's no excuse for that. When you look at the rents today, what the average people are making, everyone has to have a roommate or some supplemental income. It's not working out. The tax cuts were for the rich. That's not sustainable. Trickle-down economics has never been reality. It's always been a lie, a propaganda delusion by the rich. And I remind everyone who's against capitalism that, well, unbridled, unregulated capitalism is evil. It is. But so is unregulated, unbridled socialism, at least to things like the USSR. And let's be honest, those systems called communism and socialism, at least based on history, and I think that's a good judge, have killed more people than even organized religion has over the millennia. And that takes special talent. So when you got Chairman Mao killing over 100 million people just on his watch alone, and, you know, he didn't die at age 100. You got Stalin, who died, you know, in his 70s, okay? He killed twice as many people as Hitler did, but Hitler gets all the PR. And then, of course, you have Hitler, Pol Pot. Again, communism rules the roost as far as being the most efficient and ruthless form of genocide of any political system, more so than capitalism. So, again, I see in these arguments here by people who mean well, again, more polarized extremism. You've got people saying, we have to get rid of capitalism. No, you don't. You got people saying we have to be socialist because capitalism doesn't work. Well, sorry, it's not that simple. And if capitalism didn't work, we'd still be, you know, saluting the flag of the USSR. And nobody is because it doesn't exist anymore because socialism didn't work. Now you have something like China. Well, China seems to be working far more than less. But see, they're not really communist. They're not unregulated capitalism. They're basically totalitarian capitalists, which means they have a dictatorship that's focused and obsessed with making money, taking money specifically from the West so that it can build its own strength and wealth up, raise itself up as a nation using money from the enemy to eventually replace that enemy and be the number one superpower on the planet. That's always been China's 2050 plan. And I got news for you folks. That is the main reason why, and I know this for a fact because I've reported on it for years, especially from Asia about this, again in several full-page specials that have talked specifically about why communist China is the greatest threat to peace in the world today. And this is why the Navy has its 2040 plan. This is why the U.S. Navy has been developing these integrated defense systems with other countries, why they've been experimenting with radical new technologies that, yes, whether people want to admit it or not, do cause UFO sightings. Pilots are tested with these new weapons. They're not told about them because that would blow the point of the test. And yes, you can throw the Tic Tac cases in the mix there. It's kind of obvious. In fact, the one thing, I'll just say this in passing because I don't want this show to be about Tic Tacs. The one thing that everybody seems to have missed, which really stood out in my mind at least when I started looking at the details of the case, was the one component that nobody seemed to understand kicked off these incidents. We must remember that the Nimitz attack group was fitted with a brand new Doppler radar, the Spy-1. Now, you say, wow, okay, and because it's so good and high-tech, it was able to pick up those aliens who were there the whole time. We just couldn't see them with our inferior technology earlier. But now that we got the Spy-1 radar, there they are, unmasked, there for the world to see, later for Tom DeLonge to exploit in a series, yada, yada, yada. Well, it didn't happen that way. The reason all these UFOs were showing up, especially coming from space, quote unquote, is because when you install this new equipment and you begin to shake it down, this is part of that process. And this is not a secret. In fact, the answer is right in front of everybody's eyes. This is what is hysterically funny. If you look at the Aegis system, you've got these flat panels that are going at a vertical degree, slightly off of 90 degrees. And it looks like a flat panel. And you say, wow, where's the radar? I don't see a dish. I don't see anything spinning around or whatever. Well, beneath that mesh, flush against it practically are dozens of minor sensors that can be rotated and tweaked with refinements in the software. And because there was a problem with picking up spurious objects, things that were there 1 minute, made right angles at an instant in another, suddenly accelerated, were gone. They're called phantoms. That's a generic category for them, folks. They had to fine-tune these sensors with the software to the point that by the time 10 years later, when they were deploying more advanced versions, the SPY 3 and 4, on the Princeton group, they actually halted the project, brought in more than one contractor, more than Raytheon at this point. It also involved Lockheed. Boeing and Northrop Grumman were also involved. And they were able to fine-tune these sensors, especially after India joined the Aegis Alliance. And I know this because I reported on all of this. And let me remind the UFO experts out there who think the Tic Tac case is proof of disclosure, which is just pure BS, or proof of, aliens visiting us, which is, again, nonsense in this case, literally this case. India, Aegis, is an integrated defense system involving the navies of several allied countries. So if a country fires a missile like North Korea at Japan, and a ship from the Australian Navy is the best ship positioned to take that missile out while it's en route to the target, or we don't know where it's going. They didn't tell us ahead of time, so it needs to be taken out regardless. It is a threat. The Aegis ship allows the integration of air, land, and sea assets to kick in and take out or attack a target. It is a way to help corral communist China and what it is doing in the Chinese seas. Now, we'll come back and talk about this more in a moment after our break here. Then we'll wind up the Tic Tac stuff, and then we'll end it on the so-called paranormal. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world.
interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Cal Korff. I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. When we're talking about the Aegis system, again, the Aegis system is a military breakthrough. It's badly needed to help curtail and contain communist China and its aggressive ambitions, because what it does is through a common set of technologies that integrate air, land, and sea. The Aegis defense system consists of a bunch of assets, primarily naval assets from different countries, who operate in unison. The software can scale. It can distribute across the different ships that are part of the alliance, so that you basically have a so-called 360 view of things going on. And you must remember that the Pentagon itself has had a program that they've been working on for many years now that has a working code name roughly of Vision 2040. And the reason that it is called Vision 2040 is because Communist China has a Vision 2020, a Vision 2025, and a Vision 2050 plan. And you might say, well, what are all these vision plans? What the hell is that about? Well, I'll give you the short version here. And again, I've written and reported on this. You can easily check this yourself. Don't just take my word for it. The 2020 plan from Communist China, and we know this because actual military documents containing the invasion plans were leaked by CIA and Mossad and other sources. China wants to conquer Taiwan by the year 2020. If they can't do it economically or socially, they will do it military if they have to. Now, it might be ironically that they delay doing this for a couple of years because of the economic sanctions that are hurting them economically, let's be honest. They're also hurting the United States economically. Trump isn't giving $15 billion in aid to farmers for losing sales to China just because he's a nice guy. He has to pay that money, otherwise politically he won't survive. And whenever you start a trade war, and Trump did start it, then of course you better be prepared to spend to back it up. The Chinese goal, by the way, is to ride this out, hoping Trump doesn't get reelected. China has the money and the deep coffers to ride it out. The question is, will the resolve of the United States be strong enough to do the same thing, since American consumers, due to the government's fault and that of private industry, are disproportionately dependent on Chinese manufacturing versus the other way around. So that is China's plan roughly. The military plans that I saw that were leaked, I viewed them in India, wrote about them, reported them, showed that Taiwan was going to be invaded at around 16 different points on the island simultaneously, while undergoing a barrage of 1,000 rockets being launched at it. And of course, Communist China literally has 1,000 rockets aimed at Taiwan. That number is not a coincidence. Their 2025 plan, after seizing Taiwan, calls for them to be totally self-sufficient where all strategic vitals, minerals and elements are concerned. This would involve oil. This would involve rare earth metals. This would involve things like rubber, the ability to have coal and so on, to be basically self-sufficient so that they could fight a war if necessary without having to worry about imports or having to worry about them being boycotted through international manufacturing boycotts. And then, of course, after they're self-sufficient, don't need the U.S., and they begin to chip away at the United States economically by lining up other opportunities around the world, like buying mineral rights to South Africa, certain African countries, or going ahead and seizing airports by funding them in African countries, knowing that those dictators would never pay the debt back. They're out of power. China gets the airport. Then they get a toehold in that part of the world. That's their plan. Again, typical textbook communist aggression. Appear to go through one door when you're really going through the other. And that is what China is doing. And they plan to be the world's number one superpower, never to look back again, by the year 2050. And because it all boils down to basically numbers, everything from babies to the number of drones you want to make in your attack army, China is, of course, plugging away on all those fronts, too. China, right now, has the world's largest army of drones. It's only going to get bigger, and they're exporting those drones around the world. For sale, of course, to other dictatorships, just like they're exporting the technology to control people that they use in their own country to other dictatorships. And, of course, that country was developed in partnership with companies like Google and Microsoft, because they're patriotic American companies who just love freedom and democracy and would never put profits over principles. That's why they help the Chinese oppress the Chinese people. You figure it out. Makes no sense, right? Can't have it both ways, right? But these companies too often try to do, and it points out their hypocrisy. So I think a lot of people see this. They don't like it. They're upset over it. They're disillusioned with a lot of the politics and political system. It's interesting that I'm seeing record numbers of Americans now interested in politics, having opinions about it, following it, clicking through whatever on the internet, commenting on it on social media, but yet record numbers of these same people don't want anything to do with these two political parties, and they want something new, but they haven't figured out that maybe they should go out for an individual rather than a party. In other words, I think before the light really goes on and people actually start to enact real change in the United States, I think, unfortunately, things are going to get a lot worse before they get better or have any chance of getting better because, again, we have things coming that we're going to have to face the music on. And I'm going to ask you to think about these things to end this show here. You must remember that in the history of the United States, you've had basically two political parties. Again, you know their names, Democrats, Republicans. Now, you can pick presidents from either party that one can argue were great men. The world needed them at the time. In my own view, I would say that the world needed a John Kennedy. The world needed a Ronald Reagan. The Cold War was ended by Reagan. Kennedy died before he could impose the kind of change he wanted, but if he hadn't died and had not been murdered by Lee Harvey Oswald, he's the only one who killed Kennedy. Don't let anyone else lie to you or fool you and talk conspiracy nonsense, because it is nonsense. Well, the Civil Rights Act was passed, and Johnson carried through several of those reforms. Because of Kennedy getting killed, they probably would have been passed anyway, but it would have taken longer. Kennedy pushed us to go to the moon. We did. If Kennedy hadn't done it, Russia might have gone there first, and who knows how that would have impacted the world. So you can say, yeah, we've had great presidents in the past from both parties. I consider Theodore Roosevelt to have been a really good president. Because of him, a lot of child abuse for labor was put to the end. Unions that were doing good things instead of puppets of the mafia were helped. There was a minimum wage. There were some social benefits. I think Social Security is a good program. Unfortunately, it's being abused by not only some people who draw from it, but especially by the politicians who raid its coffers to fund their other pet little projects. So when you look at all the problems that the United States has, and the list is pretty long and it's getting worse, and the problems on that list are getting worse, not better, ask yourself a simple question. Who did this? What political parties have caused this problem? Well, there's only one answer, and it's a short sentence, and it's 3 words. Democrats and Republicans. That's it, period, full stop. There's no other party to blame. It ain't there. So it's them. All right, so if you admit that the Democrats and Republicans have caused the problems, doesn't matter who, but they were a member of one party or the other, not both. If those two parties caused the problems, why do you keep voting for them? Are you stupid? Do you want this to continue? I have to ask people. I have these conversations with people all the time, every week, with my fellow Americans. When I get the time, I'll ask them, Republican vote, why do you like Trump? Why do you hate Trump? Whatever. And then I drill down and I say, you agree that both parties suck. So why do you keep voting them in power? Why can't you just write in none of the above or just don't participate in something that you don't believe in. Because what does that make you when you do? Well, I don't know. You fill in that blank. It all depends on your motives. I don't support either political party because, as far as I'm concerned, the one party I used to support before a guy named Bill Clinton came along was the Democrats. I'm talking about the old school Democrats, not the Bill Clintonites, the ones who sold our future out to Asia largely and are corrupt. No, I think the party left me. It left most Americans. And I think most Americans feel that both parties don't care about them. And if you look at the corruption and the way they help each other, it is so bad and so rampant that it makes you lose faith in the possibility that the human race is going to survive for the long term. And when I look at the news once in a while, I think we get little reminders from nature that we can be taken out any time and we really have no say in it. You may have heard on the news, I think it was in the news today, maybe last night, that an asteroid came very close to the Earth. And by the time it was detected, it was too late. Now, it was only big enough to take out a large city instead of the whole planet or a continent of it, the likes of which would have wiped out the dinosaurs like it did in the past. But the idea that a major city would disappear from a rock hurtling towards the Earth that's about 300 feet long, well, Mother Nature wins. She's the boss. Join me next week. We'll be back for another episode of Cal's Corner Radio.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com. or www.xzonetvchannel.com, or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.